All right. Our wetlands are still operational for the year. They're still doing extremely well. We're getting to that point of time in the fall when the pumping rates might start to slow down. I'm sure they will between now and the next time we chat next month. But for right now, our sites are moving quite a bit of water. Prairie Creek's moving over 1 million. Beaver Creek moving about 500,000 gallons a day. Big Chickasaw about 750,000 gallons a day. And Coldwater Creek somewhere between 3.5 and 5 million gallons a day. These are great numbers for this time of year, and we've been operating on these numbers for about the last month and a half. So we're kind of at peak efficiency. But one of the things that we're starting to notice with our nutrient testing is we're starting to see that our dissolved nutrients, the reduction efficiency is starting to drop off. You know, at the peak of the summer, we were seeing about 75% nutrient reduction. At this point in time, the vegetation is starting to senesce and it's starting to go into its sort of dormant period for the fall and winter. As that happens, the reductions sort of taper off and slow down. We're still seeing some reductions. We're still seeing between 25 and 50% nutrient concentration reductions. But most importantly, we're seeing total phosphorus reductions from the settling of particulates and sediment reductions still. So we'll keep pumps running, we'll keep wetlands operational until all those numbers drop off and until the wetlands stop doing the good job that we know they can. So we'll continue to operate at these pump rates probably for another couple of weeks, and then we'll cut the pump rates in half, and that'll buy us a little bit more time for the season to move a little bit more water, treat a little bit more of the inflows to Prairie Creek or to Grand Lake. Overall, this year's been a great success from a water treatment perspective. We've seen Prairie Creek has been fully operational all year long, and it's the first time in several years that we've had the high pump rates over there. Coldwater Creek was back this year. Remember the last couple of years we've had some issues with pumps out there as well. So we've had a solid year across the board. I'm excited to get into the final data analysis once the pumps go off, sort of see how things shake out for this year. But 2025 has been a great year. It's set us up pretty nicely for next year. We've begun construction on a couple of new projects. Red Wing Nature Preserve is officially started. That got started here just a couple of days ago. Red Wing Nature Preserve is going to be a pumped system. This is in conjunction with the state parks. And this is going to be right over by the CVB office and the St. Mary's Boat Club, right next to the state park. This will be a site that will have some walking trails. Folks will be able to go and explore that. But it'll be another pump system. We'll pump lake water into it, treat that lake water, and there's also an adjacent creek that runs to that property that drains a little bit of the North Shore. So this will be nice. This was only probably the second or third wetland on the north shore of the lake. So this is a big deal. We got a number of wetlands on the south side. Obviously, that's where the majority of the water comes in, so that's important. But it's also important to have a few here and there on the north side, and we're getting a couple. So Red Wing Nature Preserve, it'll be a neat site to see. Like I said, construction is going on right now, and you can kind of drive past it on the main road there and check things out in the coming weeks. Ideally, construction will be completed and this thing will be live, so to speak, in the spring. So we'll be able to turn it on. Last bit of wetland news we've got is the long-term data set for Beaver Creek. Obviously, we've been monitoring that for almost a decade now. That long-term data set has officially been published in the academic journal called Wetlands Ecology and Management. If you're interested to see all of the data put together over the last decade and how has that site changed and how has that site really benefited Grand Lake and what are all the numbers, if you're interested in that, or if you just want some reading material to put yourself to sleep, that article is freely available. So all you got to do is type in Beaver Creek wetland and my last name. And you'll get it. You can click on the link. Like I said, it's free to download and read. So we're excited to see that. That's the second of our sort of long-term data sets that have been published out there. And this is something that is important to have. We talk about these updates every single week, but it's important to kind of put everything together in one place. And the reason that's so critical is other people can learn from it. You know, people can pick something like this up and they can try their hand at some of the improvements that we've been successful with. They can learn from our successes, they can learn from our failures, and they can implement wetlands, you know, in their communities as well. So this is a good way to give back. Alga community update. We've had overall a pretty good year for microcystin toxin levels. When we look at the concentration graphic, obviously week of the year, we're somewhere in the mid-30s, week 35 or so of the year. We are sitting just below the long-term average, for this week in time. Remember, that long-term average comes to us from over a decade worth of weekly water samples. This is from basically the middle of the lake over by the Salina water treatment plant intake. One thing I want to draw your attention to, the green line there is this year, the black line, that's the long-term average. All that white space in between those two lines, that's good. All that void space, that's good. That means that's all improvement compared to the long-term average. We have had about 3 or 4 weeks this year so far where we've sort of touched that long-term average line, but we really haven't gone above it very much. We went above it once just for a little bit and then came right back down. So overall, this has been a really, really good year. In particular, draw your eye to week 28, week 29, week 30. You can see sort of the middle of summer, so to speak, about a month and a half ago, just how much improvement we'd seen this year compared to average concentrations. So this has been a good year overall for microcystin, just like last year was and the year before that. As we begin to sort of eyeball the end of the calendar year, what will happen to that green line is it's going to get folded into the black solid line, which is going to drop that line even lower. Every single year that average line has come down, which means every single year it gets harder and harder to get below it. So we do what we do, and we'll continue to prioritize environmental conservation projects around the watershed, and we'll see if we can have another year like this next year. We'll see if we can be continue to be below that. So exciting stuff. Any questions? Yes, sir.
We experimented with a beach over on the north side there a few years ago, right? We were going to try to make a swimming area in there.
Yeah.
What did we learn from that?
So the question is about Sunset Beach. I think that was called West Beach.
Yeah, right.
It was called West Beach at one point in time, but I think it's colloquially known as Sunset Beach now. And that was a site where we sort of restricted the exchange of water with the actual lake by building out a berm. There's still a little bit of water exchange with the lake. There's still like a 20-foot notch, 20-foot mouth that water can kind of go back and forth. We threw some aeration in there and then enacted a whole bunch of different water treatment projects to try to see what would reduce algae, what could reduce algae. And so what have we learned from that actual site? We had a couple of years where we put in some alum and a couple of years where we put in some lanthanum clay. Both of those products are designed, both those products, chemically speaking, bind phosphorus and keep it from the algal bloom. And so when we added that, what we found, what we monitored, is that it did exactly what we wanted it to do. It sequestered a whole bunch of phosphorus and it drug it down to the bottom of the lake. It drug it down to the bottom and it stays there. We also tried some algicides out there. We tried a couple of different products out there. We tried some, in addition to that, some regular aeration. We also tried some specialized aeration with microscopic bubbles, as opposed to, if you go to a pond management website, and you buy an aerator, those are macroscopic bubbles. They're fairly large bubbles, all things considered. We tried a project with microscopic bubbles that were so small they were neutrally buoyant, which meant they just floated around the water. They didn't, which is a weird thing to see, because when you get air bubbles, they rise. That's how that works. But if the bubbles are small enough, they can be neutrally buoyant. And so we tried that. And so Sunset Beach was a site, it continues to be a site where we do little water quality projects and pilots to kind of see what works. And thus far, what we've seen is that all of these different technologies that are out there, all these different technologies, they work to some varying degree. The issue that they all seem to have had at Sunset Beach is longevity. It's the improvements. When you apply the chemical or you apply the treatment or you turn on the bubbler, all of these things work, again, to some varying degree. Some of them work a little more impressively than others, but they all work to some degree. The question is, how long does that effect last when you walk away, when you're not actively applying that, that chemical, or you're not actively applying those, bubbles and things like that? What's the deal there? And, in general, what we found is when you turn those sorts of treatments off at Sunset Beach, the effects dwindle to unrecognizable within 1 to 2 weeks. And so these are important data. They're not the kind of data that, we would love to see. We'd love to see us to be able to treat something, a small area like that, and have that treatment last the entire season. We'd love that. But that hasn't been the reality based on what we've tried out there. What we've tried out there has worked. It's just as soon as you stop doing it, within 1 to 2 weeks, the water quality sort of rebounds back to what it was before you actually did the treatment. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, you got two options. You either focus on maybe the systemic problem as opposed to trying to treat symptoms. You try and treat the underlying cause of the symptoms, if that makes sense. And it also tells us that, if you were going to approach a problem with some of those solutions, you would need to treat a larger area. And for some of those solutions, you probably wouldn't want to treat the larger area because you couldn't. It would be financially or ecologically impossible or improbable. And so we've explored a lot of solutions out there, and it's given us a whole lot of information. But, moving forward, is Sunset Beach, ever going to have any more treatment approaches? Yeah, we're in some conversations right now. We might try a few other things. We are in some talks right now with some folks that are potentially exploring some more non-toxic options to kind of combat and bring down harmful algal bloom levels. But Sunset Beach continues to provide data, and like I said, unfortunately, a lot of that data shows that these technologies that are out there, these are the kind of technologies that are, easy, so to speak. They're easy in the sense that you can write a check. You can buy a project. You can buy a product. You can buy a magic bean and plant it in the ground. Unfortunately, it's, I wish some of those things worked better than they did. I wish they worked longer. But we're you got to explore them, right? These things are out there. You got to look at them. You got to test them. But as we circle back around and we sort of take stock, the one thing that is consistently and readily apparent is that improvements to the lake, the kind of improvements that manifest in graphs like this, these improvements are the result of long-term efforts to reduce the amount of nutrients that are coming from the watershed and going into the lake. These efforts are not, always terribly exciting, and they're not quick. They're not quick fixes. It's not a packet of chemicals that you can sprinkle in and mix about. It's long, hard work, and it takes a while. We didn't get to this problem overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight, and that's kind of what these projects are telling us. But we are making an impact. You can't look at graphs like this year after year and say nothing good's happening. It's just harder than I think any of us would like. Yes, sir.
What's dredging proportion to that? I mean, how does dredging impact?
Yeah, so the question is, what's dredging? What's the number? I don't know the number of cubic yards removed this past year, but how does dredging fit into this? Dredging can reduce a huge amount of the sediment that comes in. And if the next question is, does dredging keep up? I mean, that's a logical question. That's a reasonable question we should all ask. Is our dredging program keeping up, or are we firing a BB gun in a freight train? And the answer to that is the dredge program, when it's operational, and we've got all of our dredges firing, and we've had some years with some great quality data where we've actually done the analysis on this. There are years when the dredge program has removed slightly more than what's come into the lake. There are some years where that's happened. More often than not, the dredge program removes a portion of what comes in, but it's not negligible. If you get a lot coming in, and it's just not going to be possible to keep up. But we have had some years where the dredge program has removed more sediment than what has come into the lake, and that has helped to reduce the legacy phosphorus load from things that have come in. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like this year, but we had a pretty low flow year, as Dave Fahler mentioned. We've had a really low precipitation year. We have not had that much sediment rush into the lake this year. So it's possible that the dredge program captured everything that came in this year and then some. And that's kind of what we'd like to see ultimately. But it's definitely not negligible. Some years it might be 25%, some years it might be half, some years it's all of it. What the answer is this year, we'll find out.
How many of those dredge units do you have working?
Yes, the question is how many dredges are operational on the lake right now? I'm going to look to two. We'll look to Brian. There are two. Is that the Hodag? Brutus and the Hodag are the flagship names for those seagoing vessels.
Could you explain, my daughter said that the guy come down the channel there, and he's got the little outfit to check out how much silt is in each channel.
Okay.
Yeah. Will you explain how that works?
How do we determine how much silt is in each channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can do it a couple of different ways. We know what the dimensions of the channel should be. We know what a good dimension of the channel should be. So you can do that with a Doppler depth finder. You could do it with a broomstick if you wanted to go low tech. You just have to keep in mind what the lake level is, and then you figure out, hey, at this lake level, I should have 6 foot of water here, and I've got 3 foot of water. What that tells me is there's 3 foot of sediment here on the bottom, and then you can just do the math and just calculate a simple volume and say, okay, my channel's, there's 3 foot depth of sediment here, and it's 60 feet wide, and it's 2,000 feet long, and
Well, it had like some little radio controlled outfit that he took down the
oh
Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? ODNR's got that mathematical boat, Dave.
yeah, the radio controlled
Are you
one.
familiar with that?
No, not at all. Yeah, no, it would just be a fish finder. Basically, it's a Doppler radar unit, and what that thing is doing, you could put that on a regular boat, put it on a pontoon boat. You could put it on a little radio controlled speedboat. That'd be cheaper and quicker, I bet. But all that thing is doing is just taking depth measurements. It's just the world's most expensive yardstick that you could. It just takes about 1 billion yardstick measurements every second, so it gets you really, really accurate numbers.
Pretty close then, huh?
Oh, it's going to get you dialed in really close. So, no, it's a cool thing to have. Yes, sir.
What's gonna happen with the south side of the lake? As far as, stumps and things like that, things that are just full of water?
Brian, why don't you answer this? So the question is one of debris.
I've had no problems on the north end of the lake at all.
Yeah. So,
When I get down to the south end, I've hit stumps, I've seen rocks.
yep.
I just spent $14,000 on a new motor.
Oh wow.
I'm not looking to keep.
You're not looking to add more to that total, huh? That's fair. That's understandable. There's going to be more debris on that side of the lake because that's.
Is that where all the intakes are?
You got it. That's where all the inflows are. That's where all the streams are, all the tribs. We've got some great community organizations with the Grand Lake Rec Club. Big shout out to them. Throughout the year, they flag things and they pull them out. They've got a boat. I think they call it the log dog. That's and it's fantastic. And they go out and they cut these up and remove them. If you see something like that, if there's a way that you can tie some sort of a reflective flag to it, and then let somebody at the Grand Lake Rec Club know, that would be great.
That's funny because ODNR told me not to do that.
Not to do that. Okay.
They said, no, seriously, they said that it adds to the pollution of the lake.
Well, if the state of Ohio said not to do it,
Call them.
I would, I would let the DNR know that it's there, and then I would also probably let the Grand Lake Rec Club know as well, because they go out and they do a tremendous amount of service for free for our community in that way. And also the DNR does do removals as well. They do a lot of removals, but it takes everybody. But these folks that are out there with the right equipment at the right time in the right place, they have to know where to go.
I tied them off to my pontoon and brought them in.
Oh, we appreciate that. But yeah, if you could, if you can't move something or something like that, or you don't feel safe or comfortable doing it, take a GPS point. If putting a flag on it is not an option, a GPS point, and then let somebody else know. So, all right, I think we are going to move on to our next speaker, Doug Wynn from The Ohio State University. Go Bucks. Talk to us about snakes at Grand Lake.